Okay, guys. So my name is Daniela. Daniela, yeah, sure. Okay, I talk a lot. Like those of you who know me know that I talk a lot. So if you see me that I'm going like out of the way with my preaching, that you're like, where are you going through this? I don't get it. Just like make a sign like, Danny, no, like, and I'll get it. You know, like, oh, okay. So back to the preaching. So for me to start telling you about my actual voice, like the point that I want to talk about, I need to give you like a little background on it. So my dad, okay, that's my cousin. So my dad is married, right? And I know this sounds like, oh, obvious, he's married to his wife. But he's married to his wife, and at the same time, he's with my mom. So my mom is not his wife. So he's basically with his wife and my mom at the same time, like with two women. I have 5 siblings, 2, my mom and my dad, and 3 on my dad's side, right? So since I was very little, like barely since I learned how to talk, I knew that I couldn't talk about my mom when I was with my dad's side of the family. Like he'll take me with him to like be with like my family, like oh hang out with my cousins, my brothers. And I knew like if they were like, oh, so how's your mom? I'm like, fine, she's great. Perfect. So but tell me about your mom. She's great, amazing, she's great. Because I knew that they shouldn't know more about my mom. Because you know like the position like my mom was in and like my dad's wife, like it's uncomfortable, you know? Like it's not an easy position to be. And me being like a little, like imagine like any memory that you have like being a little kid. Like that was like, I knew what I had to say and not to say, like 4 or 5 years old. And this brings me to the thing that I want to tell you. When I was like 6 years old, we would always go to, I don't know if you know like a country club, like it has like a pool, like nice areas, whatever. Okay. That's really common in Venezuela. I'm from Venezuela, by the way. So we will go like not every weekend, but like really often, because I will always like birthdays, or we'll go to a country club, or like any like meetings, or like oh we're having something barbecue, whatever. I'll go with them, and it was nice, you know. Like I was with my siblings, whatever. And there was this one time that we were like all talking, and my dad's wife, she was always like, oh, so your mom, right? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. She's like, oh, but how is she? And I was like, that time I was like, great, like as usual. She's like, oh, okay. And you know that face that like villains made on like movies, that they're like, so tell me more. So how is she? You know, like it's not evil, but it's like, like tell me more. I know you're hiding something. So I was like, nah, like I'm good. There's nothing more to say here. So she was like, oh, so you're an only child? I was 6 years old. I was like, yeah, I want to leave now, bye. And I didn't know that you needed 2 people to make a baby, you know? I was like, yeah, only me. And then I was like, oh, my mom's pregnant. And I was like, well, for now, because, you know, my mom's pregnant. And her face went from like, I don't know, she went from that, like being like, to like angry, like sad face. She was like, so your mom's pregnant. And it's like, is your dad, oh, shout out to Rita for like the Vega twins, please. Oh my God. The talent, like, oh my God. No, please. Stop it. So that was her face. She was like shocked, like sad. And there's so many emotions on her face. And she was like, okay, let's go find your dad. And I was like, oh my God, I screwed up. And don't bring my dad into this. Don't, he's okay over there. So we went to talk to him. And when she came up to him, she was like, so her mom's pregnant. And he looked at me and I was like, ooh, okay, I'm leaving now. I'll leave you to it. We got to my house and I forget everything, and I forgot to tell my mom that I was going home because she wasn't there. And when we got there, my mom wasn't there obviously, and they left me at my neighbor's house. So I called my mom and I'm like, so mom, something happened. And she's like, what do you mean something happened? And I'm like, so I'm at the neighbor's house, you need to come home. And she's like, she hates this, by the way. She's like, casa ajena, like someone else that's not our family. She's like, no, you can't go. And then she was like, okay, I'm on my way. When she gets there, she's like, okay, what happened? And I'm like, so I, by accident, might have told my dad's wife that you're pregnant. And she's like, okay. And I was like, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. I was 6 years old. Like, that's my memory when I was 6 years old. And I was like, I'm so sorry, Mom, I didn't mean to. I know this is a problem for you, and like my dad, and like this whole thing. And like my mom, like she was like, this is not your fault. Like, she was like, this is me. This has nothing to do with you. And that for me was like the beginning of a whole like all the things that happened in my life. That I don't know if you guys have ever like noticed at the moment when you like do something or like something happens and you know that's gonna bring a whole lot of stuff to your life, like that you're like at the moment you're like, oh my God, this is gonna be like so many things to my life right now. And that was like at 6 years old, I was like, oh my God, this is beyond me. And it was like, I don't know if you ever heard of the butterfly effect, which is basically like a butterfly flaps its wings on New Mexico and it creates a hurricane all the way to China. Right there, right? So it basically says that small changes in the initial conditions lead to drastic changes in the results. So that was me. Like something I did when I was 6 years old, didn't even understand, changed my life completely. And I want you guys to like take in mind that every action, even subconscious or consciously, it has consequences. But it's how you deal with them that makes the difference. Like that butterfly, like that moment was for me the butterfly flapping its wings. Like it was like nothing at the moment. But then like I started seeing my dad less and less every time. Like we went from seeing each other like almost like every weekend to see him like once every 2 months. Or I remember when I was little, I loved going to McDonald's. I know sometimes like here, like everyone hates McDonald's, I understand it. But for me, McDonald's had a different meaning because it wasn't actually the place, it was the person. That, like, my dad would take me to McDonald's to eat with him. So every 2 months, my only, like, relationship, my only moment with my dad was McDonald's. So sometimes, like, it's not the place, it's the person. Sometimes those, like, flapping it, like, the things, like, those wings are gonna create the hurricane, like, that's gonna happen. Like, even if you want it, if you don't, that's gonna happen in your life. And it's not that it happens, it's the way that you deal with it. It's like what you get from the hurricane, that it's gonna actually make a difference to the rest of your life, or the rest of those consequences are gonna like create from the butterfly. This takes me to my second point, that it's love means sacrifice. Sorry. So I have 2 little sisters, and it was like really hard for me, like being a part of my family, like after that happened, because my dad wouldn't like take me as much as he did, or I wouldn't have that relationship with my family. But like I got used to it. Like I knew that was gonna be like, oh, you can say this, oh okay, oh you can do that, oh okay. But for me, the love means sacrifice is that my sisters or my cousins or the people around me wouldn't go through the same things, because I know what it is like to be in the place. I couldn't talk about my mom when I was like 4 or 5 years old. What else could you talk about when you're 4 or 5 years old? You don't do that much in school. So like I couldn't talk about the only thing I actually did. For my sisters, now when they ask, because kids ask a lot of questions, right? It's impressive. And not really. And when they ask, like I only have my mom to explain it for me. But now they not only have my mom, but they have me. That is not only like, oh, my mom's here, she explains me this, and that, and I'm like, okay, sure. But like, when you're like an older sibling or you have cousins, you have someone that went through it with you, yeah? Oh, I thought you were talking to me, sorry. You have someone it's different when someone gives you an advice and they went through it already. Like you see it with a different perspective, and more if it's like your siblings or like your cousins, because you know they don't mean bad to you. So my sister, when she was like 5 years old, I think, she asked about why is my dad isn't here? I think it was Christmas, or I don't know, like, you know, El Día del Niño. It's basically like Mother's Day, but like for kids, and it's really common in Latin America. Yeah, you know, no way. Okay, listen, maybe people don't know. You don't know that. Okay. So when they asked my mom, and they were like, "So, mom, wasn't that here?" And my mom was like, "So it's like, you know, the talk, but like our talk was like, so your dad's married, like he has a whole other family. You know, it's like it's two talks actually, because it's the family talk and that talk. Like it's a whole lot more." And for them, when they asked her and they looked at me and they're like, "So you knew this already?" And I'm like, "Okay, listen." And like I sit with them and like I get to be that person that I didn't have. I didn't have. And sometimes you have to be that person not only to your relatives, but like, for example, me here, people at church. There's people that not necessarily the same things that you went through, but similar things. Like people know that you're there. Your friends know that you're there. That was me with my sisters. And there's something I read, I think it's a guy in Kenya, I'm not sure, that he said this phrase that I loved it, guys, and it's so amazing. It says, "It's about becoming the angel you would like to run into one day." And that shocked me. When I read it, I was like, and it was like the time of me like preparing my voice, and I was like, oh my God, like that gives you so much like power to help other people. And for me, my relationship with my dad, it's kind of complicated. I cry a lot, so if I cry, I don't get like, oh my God, I cry a lot. Just so you know, my relationship with my dad, it's really complicated. So we have similar like personalities. And imagine all this thing that I told you, right? And add on to that we have similar personalities, right? So it's like harder for us to like communicate. And when I was talking to Marcia about doing my voice, she was like, "Oh, you should talk about this, you should talk about that." And now, it's not like I didn't want to talk about forgiveness. It's just that I've been back and forth with him so many times that I realized, like she told me, and then like I started like thinking more about it, and like forgiveness, it is a decision. And forgiveness, it's more for you than it is for the other person sometimes. Because my thing with my dad, it's something that's still going on. Like he's still with his wife and he's still with my mom to this day, like right this very moment, right now. And it's even harder for you to forgive or live something in the past when it's still there, like it's still happening. It's like, oh, it happened 6 years ago, that's it. No, it's every day, like going out on trips or hanging out or like anything, it's still there. He's still married, he still has his other family, all these other things. And something that made me really happy is that for me, it was super weird to have my dad on family trips. Like for me, it was like, so my dad's coming? Why he doesn't have anything else to do? Why? And for my sisters, and for my sisters, was totally the opposite. Like I go for Christmas and summer vacations, and if we're going like on a trip or something, my dad's there. And if he doesn't go, which is rarely, thank God right now, they're like, so why isn't that here? And I'm like, I mean, he was never there. But I get so happy that my sisters didn't live what I lived. Like that they get to be with him. They get to have a relationship with him. And I'm not mad that I lived the things that I lived, because that makes me appreciate the little moments that I have with my dad even more. Even if they're the smallest, like 5-minute like moments, I get to appreciate them more. Because they're more, like for me, they're more like honest, they're more pure. And because of that, I built walls, muros, walls, sorry. Which takes me to my third point, that it's knock down the walls. Rita. So God showed me that I was waiting for him to say like, oh, I'm sorry. And when I actually got it, it wasn't what I expected. Like, he did apologize to me. But for me, it wasn't enough. Because it wasn't what I was wanting him to do. And sometimes you get mad, you get upset, and you put all these feelings behind a wall, and you don't notice that you put up a wall to those feelings. And that same wall that I put to my feelings, like my relationship with my dad and everything, that wall was keeping me from having a relationship with God. For me, I've always wanted to have what I have here at church. I grew up in a Catholic school church, and it's not the same. I didn't feel the same. And for me, finding that here, I noticed that I can't be like, yes, God, I love you, yes, we're great, and then be with my dad like, yeah, I don't talk to you, you did that, like, screw you. I can't do that. Like, I had to breathe in, breathe out, and be like, okay, Dad, we're still on this, and I understand, and every day I make the decision to forgive him. And sometimes I don't understand the way he does things or why he does those things, but he's still my dad. And I thought of it in Spanish. I hope everyone understands it. And I said that no puedes tener una relación con tu Padre Celestial, which is God, si no tienes una relación con tu papá terrenal. So for me to first really get to God, I had to get to my dad. Even if he wasn't there yet, God told me, talked to my heart, and he was like, you're ready. You got this. Like, it doesn't matter if it isn't there, you are there. And the butterfly effect took me to get to help my sisters, to then be able to knock down the walls that I didn't even know they were there around my heart. And I realized that forgiveness, it's out of love. Like, when I started really loving God and having a relationship with God, I realized that forgiveness comes out of love. Like, if you don't love the person, I think it's kind of impossible to forgive them. Because usually the people that you forgive that easily, it's either your mom, either your sister, either your best friend. Because you're like, okay, I can't be mad at them forever, So you love them. And I started having a love-hate relationship with my dad that I'm still working on it every day. This is the real, I work on it every day. And we fight more than we actually talk. But I still try to have that, make that step towards it, And I found a phrase that it says I can obey out of obligation, or I can obey out of love. And I change it to I can forgive out of obligation, or I can forgive out of love. And I rather forgive out of love than out of obligation. So, guys, I just want you to take what I told you today, that every little thing that we do, every little step that we take has a consequence, but we always think of consequences as bad things. And consequences don't necessarily have to be bad things. Consequences are just the results. Like, did this, had the result, how did I deal with that result? What did I do with that result? And with that result, who can I help with? Who needs this? And that's it. Thank you.